Am I the asshole for leaving my ex-fiancé after he left me on vacation in the Cayman Islands? I've been struggling with this question for a long time, and I hope sharing my story will help me gain some perspective. My ex-fiancé and I were together for just under 3 years. When we first met, he was in a dire situation, homeless, with twin kids. Despite the obvious challenges, I opened my heart and home to him. He moved into my one-bedroom apartment, a cramped space that soon became even more crowded. I rearranged everything to make room for his children and stepped into a motherly role almost immediately. I took care of his kids more than he did, ensuring they had stability and love in their lives. From the very beginning, I poured my heart and soul into the relationship. I took on the role of a caregiver without hesitation, cooking, cleaning, helping with homework, and providing emotional support. I did everything I could to create a warm, nurturing environment for his kids. However, despite my efforts, my ex had severe jealousy issues. He was constantly suspicious and insecure, projecting his past infidelities onto me. One incident stands out in particular. We were watching Spider-Man 2, and I casually mentioned that Jamie Foxx looked good for his age. That one innocent comment sent him into a rage. He packed up all his things and everything I had bought for his kids while I was at work and moved out. My friends still refer to it as the Jamie Foxx debacle. It was absurd and deeply hurtful. But I loved him and wanted to make things work, so I forgave him when he apologized, and we stayed together for another 2 years. Our relationship was a roller coaster of highs and lows. There were moments of genuine happiness, like when he surprised me with a romantic dinner, or when we took the kids to the park and played together as a family. But those moments were often overshadowed by his insecurities and controlling behavior. He would constantly check my phone, accuse me of flirting with other men, and question my every move. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, trying to avoid anything that might set him off. In April of that year, he proposed, and shortly after, I found out I was pregnant. We were both thrilled about the prospect of having a baby girl. However, in my second trimester, I miscarried. The loss was devastating. It felt like my world had collapsed. While I was grieving, he said something that shattered me even further. It's not hard for me because I already have a son and daughter. His callousness left me feeling isolated and broken. A month later, we went on a family vacation to the Cayman Islands for my parents' 25th wedding anniversary. My parents generously covered all the expenses: flights, Airbnb, groceries. All we had to pay for were excursions and alcohol. It was supposed to be a relaxing and joyful time, a chance for us to reconnect and heal. But from the very start, things were tense. He was distant and irritable, complaining about trivial things and picking fights over nothing. On the third day of the trip, out of nowhere, he accused me of cheating while I was pregnant. His baseless accusation added to my already overwhelming grief and confusion. I was stunned and hurt by his words. We had just come back from a beautiful day at the beach, and I thought maybe, just maybe, we could enjoy this vacation without any drama. But his accusation came like a bolt of lightning, shattering the fragile peace we had. As awful as that was, the next day was even worse. My family and I went snorkeling, but we took my parents back to the house early because my mum had a migraine. That left my fiancé, my sister, her boyfriend, my youngest sister, and me. While the rest of us swam, the guys were having drinks at the bar. When we returned, my fiancé started complaining about how he couldn't even afford a haircut. I playfully joked, "It's not like he can't afford it, he just likes my haircuts better." He completely lost it. He yelled at me, stormed off, and disappeared for an hour. We were in a beautiful tropical paradise, but all I felt was anxiety and fear. When we finally found him, he drove us back to the Airbnb like a maniac. Everyone in the car, including my little sister, was terrified. He was speeding and swerving, his face twisted in rage. I could see the fear in my sister's eyes, and I felt utterly helpless. Back at the house, he threw a tantrum slamming doors, huffing and yelling at my parents. I begged everyone to calm down, But the situation escalated to a frightening level. My dad tried to reason with him, but it only made things worse. He accused my family of taking sides and undermining him. The tension in the house was palpable, and I felt like I was on the verge of a breakdown. That night, he bought a $700 last-minute plane ticket home and left in the middle of the night without a word. Yes, the man who couldn't afford a haircut managed to buy a ticket on a whim. I was left stunned and heartbroken. How could he abandon me like that in a foreign country with my family? I spent the rest of the night crying, feeling utterly betrayed and alone. When we returned home, I tried desperately to salvage the relationship. I loved his kids and wanted a future with him. But the more I tried, the more I realized how toxic the relationship had become. I had ignored countless red flags, sacrificed my well-being, and endured emotional abuse. One evening, after a particularly heated argument, I sat alone and reflected on everything I had been through. I remembered the early days when I took him and his kids in, the joy of finding out I was pregnant, the pain of losing our baby, and the horror of being abandoned on vacation. It became clear to me that I deserved better. I deserved someone who would cherish and respect me, not someone who would continuously tear me down. I made the difficult decision to leave. It wasn't easy. I had grown attached to his children and had envisioned a future with them. But I knew I had to prioritize my own happiness and mental health. I weaned myself off his kids and forced him to step up as their parent again. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but also one of the most necessary. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I went to therapy to work through my grief and trauma. I reconnected with friends and family who had been worried about me. I found joy in small things, reading a good book, going for walks, and rediscovering hobbies I had abandoned. Slowly but surely, I started to feel like myself again. Looking back, I realized how much I compromised and sacrificed for a relationship that was never healthy. I ignored red flags, made excuses for his behavior, and convinced myself that things would get better. But they never did. Leaving him was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but it was also the best decision for my well-being. So, am I the asshole for leaving him? I gave everything to this relationship, ignored countless red flags, and sacrificed my well-being. I loved his kids and wanted a future with him, but at what cost? Was I wrong for walking away?